I can't be starred. You are, get on my way.
If IG tries to continue the fight, they are going to be 4 versus 5. But the Shy goes on a killing spree and gets himself out! No way!
The Shy, I would say, has looked a cut above every single top laner.
This is a guy who's becoming a household name.
He's just a transcending top laner. People could confidently say that he's the best player in the world. Confident, the best player in the world.
I can't be starred. You are, get on my way. I gotta win. Like I'm not. The one on the top. We've been it before. You know what I did? I'm on my job. I'm doing my thing. I'm just on record. Do it again.
If an enemy come, he just dodge to gank or just kill the enemy. Make enemy scared to gank.
Flash to try and set up the straight line skill shot. Red like a book. The Shy outplays it. And then Ning just able to play cleanup.
Talking to the EU pros, I mean, the stories that they tell about playing versus the Shy are like literal nightmare fuel.
Pretty much every matchup he knows, just plays to his limits really well.
Shut down on the Ning will not mean much when Invictus Gaming is diving deep into the base, and it is an ace!
Just look at those angles from the Shy.
I think the Shy, just like, probably one of the best players at living in the chaos.
These insane carry top laners are looking onto him to see if they can topple him.
You make a normal tier list, and then you make 4 when you're facing the Shy. We can't give him Jace, we can't give him this.
Which one do you give him?
I mean, ideally you can ban 20 carries.
You know what I did? I'm on my job. I'm doing my thing. I'm just on record.
All right, here we go.
They said whatever, and I don't just talk to you. You should score. I'm going in.
还是真的是可以一个打穿5个的感觉，一个追着5个跑。
좋은 선수라고 사람들에게 불리게 됐는데 좀 그것에 대해서 제가 보통 압박감 안 느끼는 편인데 이제 조금 관심이 많아지시고 좀 더 경기를 잘하는 모습을 보여주다 보니까 좀 압박감을 좀 느끼기 시작했고 지금 MSI가 중요한 무대가 될 것 같아요 저희한테.
跟他最好的表现的话来说的话，就是还差一点，就现在他状态还不是最好的状态。
Welcome back to MSI 2019, where we're about 14 minutes away from G2 versus Flash Wolves. This tournament has created a venue for some of the best players League of Legends has ever seen. And with this in mind, we challenged Raz to give us his top 5 pros at MSI so far. So take it away.
Let's go for it. So the definition is going to be important about this one. So I'm going to say top 5 that we've seen at the tournament so far. Just what we've seen, the 4 days currently played out. Clid coming in as number 1. 3 of the 3 MVPs that he was able to get. Then you have Rookie, Caps, Faker, and Wonder to wrap it up.
Woo! Kobe's got mouth agape right now.
So
hit me.
My mind is absolutely blown right here, right now. This was not even close to what I was expecting. I did not. First of all, right, you're like, all right, where's the shot? Is this actually in order? You know, where one of these guys? Where are we starting with here, Raz? Okay, so Clid. Even just to me right now, defend Clid as being better than Ning. Because I think that Clid has been exceptional, but people are also underestimating Ning. Him pulling out the Camille in the game where they had to smash so early, I thought was such a big look from IG as well.
100%. Consistency matters the most to me. And when you see Invictus Gaming games, remember, there's a major caveat of the games that we've seen versus Bungbu, Buffaloes, G2 to a certain extent. Ning coming into these games, into the tournament, a lot of the time started off on a flat foot. And that's not to say that I don't expect Ning to come out, because I'm high on Ning. I'm high on the Shy, who we don't even see on the list. But based off of what we've seen in the tournament so far, he has not been the consistent, cool-headed force. It's been the other carries that have been setting it off.
The 6-0 team in the tournament only has 1 player on your list right now, and the guys push it in 3rd. They got 2 members.
Thankfully, I started off as a top 10 list, and Jackie Love came in pretty high for me. So not high enough for top 5, and remember, we're in a championship
Not high
tournament.
enough for 6-0.
Look. Calm yourself. Then you gotta relax now. The reason why I have Rookie so high, because on consistency, even throughout a lot of the questionable games like the Flash Wolves, disaster. Rookie came in super strong, super calm, and even in the early games when he was getting pressured 3v1, you see the consistency in his early game goal differential, CS differential. He was a major playmaker for the team.
I have no problems with any of that analysis. 100% agree with you. That's why Rookie should be number 1. He is the best performing player at this tournament right now over the likes of Clid, who again, I would put Clid actually 2nd. I do agree that there is a conversation about Ning, but I think Clid is working with a little bit less than Ning is.
Yes.
I'm just shocked that Faker is on the top 5
That
and that
was
you
the
have
one
2
I was
members of
gonna call out.
SKT.
The hardest one for me is like conversations with Faker or Meliodas for Faker, someone who, for a lot of people, have high expectations, or some people, coming into the tournament saying that he doesn't have it anymore, right? Faker, throughout all the numbers, he has been stellar. And in all the troubles that FCT has had, either in the top lane, troubles getting Khan back into the game, or the bottom lane, that whole Tariq Sona catastrophe, he's been keeping them in these games, or a lot of the times being like, what the hell's happening, team? Like, he has been so strong, and I see that consistency, and you have to rate it in what has been a very chaotic tournament so far.
I'd say one of the main differences for me with Faker and the other two mid laners that you have on your list is that Caps and Rookie both roam exceptionally well.
Yes.
And that's maybe the one thing that Faker has not displayed to me so far this tournament.
Coming into the tournament, it has seemed like a mid laners tournament. Remember, people looking at the power of these mids, I'm a little sad that I couldn't even get to show Jensen, who's been performing so well for Team Liquid. I thought when it comes down to being able to pick up wins, Faker was able to do that pretty easily for his team. And I suppose like a 3-3, a lot of LCK fans are upset. But I think Faker's shown a lot, and he has way more in the tank.
Notably, no AD carries and no supports sneaking into the top 5.
I'm a little sad. Once again, Champions Tournament, so much impact in the jungle and mid, and I think that somewhat has skewed it.
Who is your top-rated ADC then?
Jackie Love for me.
Okay.
Jackie Love has been stellar, and the saddest thing about that is, like, you look at the Vayne performance versus Team Liquid, and that kind of has drawn it back for me, because if that performance didn't happen, then certainly he hits that top 5.
And what about for supports? Just out of curiosity, who's number 1?
Let's see. Support.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no!
Did you know
Not even one in the top 10.
So remember, expectation coming into the tournament was like, Bao Lan and Core JJ were the people that I was looking at, especially Core JJ. I had my eyes on him. It was just very sad that individually he wasn't performing. And for Bao Lan, once again, he just has a lot of stars around him. And I think other members in those games were the members
just
that
a little
popped
bit
up.
higher.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess, to be fair to Raz, as far as the supports rating, a lot of the solo laners have shown better performances on some support champions.
Oh, no.
Oh, Lord. All right, well, this is Raz's top 5. Please tweet at Esports with your MSI top 5, and definitely at Raz. Get in there with some of that flame. We'll see what Wonder and Caps can do, though, against the Flash Wolves as the LEC champions look to continue their success here at MSI 2019.
There we go. There is so much more to talk about, especially going into the best of 5s. I expect the Shy to come right back into that list.
Meanwhile, in control of second place right now, G2 looking extremely strong. Coming over from Europe, we did doubt Frosker and Vedius talking about, yes, they're definitely better than SKT. Well, they're a full game ahead of SK Telecom right now. They hold their own destiny with defending this number 2 spot, and that goes so far, heading towards the best of 5 series, I feel like.
And it says so much to the top side of the map. Jankos, Wonder, and Caps have been performing so well that they're able to come in second place, even with Perks and Mickey X really underperforming. I had a lot of hopes for Mickey X in particular, but that's once again, another example of individual misplays happening there.
I'm really glad that you brought up Jankos when you started that sentiment, because I feel like Jankos is kind of like the guy that is flying under the radar, not necessarily with fan sentiment, but in a lot of the conversations with analysts. It's all about Wonder, it's all about Caps, it's all about Mickey, but Jankos has been so on form for this team, and especially in a matchup across from Flash Wolves, because this is a revitalized Flash Wolves. They are looking much better, they're scaling up into the tournament, but their weak point is their jungler, and Jankos can rip this guy apart and just make this such a one-sided matchup.
I'm going to hop on that because in what could have been seen as a sure win on day 1, G2 now go up against, as you mentioned, a revitalized Flash Wolves who reminded fans why they're a mainstay here at MSI. Flash
Wolves coming into the tournament started out so flat because we expected so much out of some of these individuals, Hanabi and Rather especially. And in a lot of the team fights where they're coming in and saying, oh, they're one of the better team fighting teams, well, they were catastrophic. But now we're starting to see members like Betty really able to free fire and had that spacing because, you're seeing Boogie come out and give him a lot of frontline pressure. And so the team fights have been so much better, and it gave them that win versus Team Liquid.
Yeah, and I think it should give a lot of the other teams pause because Flash Wolves are an organization with a history of winning at MSI. this would be 4 years in a row that they would move on to the group stage, and now they're looking like they have a very good chance to do that.
And they're done with the Cho'Gath and Rumble mid lane, I hope.
Hopefully.
Can you imagine being the jungler? You like rock out of your jungle, you look top, there's Cho'Gath, you look mid, there's Rumble, you're like Robin Williams from Jumanji, like what year is it? What is this composition? What do I do with this?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't have the answer for that, and they didn't either, clearly. Let's run with some predictions for the day. Yesterday was maybe the toughest of all days to predict because of exactly the discussion we're having, maybe the kick-up for the Flash Wolves. And taking a look at the predictions, we only have one differential, and that would be the G2 call for Frosker. And over IG, currently undefeated at the top of the stand.
I heard that there was some spicy predictions. I was like, someone picked Fongbu Buffaloes over TL. I see, a good meatball discussion.
No, I'm calling you out for the G2 over IG. Not that it isn't possible, but just that it will be the first loss that IG sustains if it happens.
Okay, so there's two schools of thought here. The first one is trying to predict the upset. MSI, usually there's upsets. I'm like, which one's probably the most likely? I was between PvP and TL and G2 and Invictus Gaming, and I decided to roll the dice here. Now, that said, I don't think there's a lot of analysis that you can take from the first time that these teams faced. That Vayne top, you heard the apologies from G2. It got absolutely slammed. I don't expect that to be the run back. So for me, it's kind of like reset. And maybe that's the biased lens of looking at it from an LEC perspective, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
This is like reset, from ground zero, what do we got?
Even with those heavy criticisms of the first game, remember, that game started out with 3 early kills for G2. So that's one of those expectations where G2 is usually the team that starts out so strong early in these games that I can see that happening.
I mean, even IG themselves in a lot of their interviews after their wins have been like, yeah, I can definitely see, many of these teams taking wins off of us. So it's not like it's this crazy, like, what? I can't believe it. They're never going to. But
right.
Because,
Shock, speaking to the coach, said specifically G2 and SKT.
Exactly. Because of the way that they play as well, when they like to test their limits, I guess, is a kind of common term, but kind of playing on that edge. We saw in the interview as well with Wonder, where he was kind of giving this testimony to how good Shy is at knowing his limits. And that has been one of the keys, why it makes it so difficult to see teams overcoming these players, because even starting on the individual basis, it's a hard task to try and see them losing those little pieces.
And in terms of like the actual analysis of what would a G2 victory look like over Invictus Gaming, I think that I don't want to call G2 baby IG. I kind of want to throw that out the window because while these teams play similar styles, the minute differences are so important.
Yeah.
And it's the side lane pressure. It's how G2 play around their side lanes and how they play around the map. Yes, Invictus Gaming can play side lane, but they often do it to collapse, to look to skirmish, to look to fight, whereas G2 are mostly about gaining individual advantages, that gold, that experience, those objectives, and it's that difference if G2 can play around it, if they can find an advantage in a solo lane and then use it to control the entire map, whereas IG find advantages in solo lanes and use it to control team fights, that's what a G2 victory looks like over Invictus Gaming.
To me, it also looks like an MVP game for Jankos. If it's a G2 victory, that's what I would assume would be the MVP of that game for me, because I feel like that's going to be such a big determining factor in how they get to that mid stage.
I mean, IG, in talking to the coach, wants crisper, cleaner play from the squad. We realize that that might not come with the 5 players that you have on the Rift there. But Raz, I'll return to you and say, as we narrow our way towards the knockout stage and IG looks to cement themselves in their, beginning of a legacy or dynasty here for the LPL, what do you want to see out of this squad that will make them, separate and feel unreachable for the rest of the teams?
What I would love to see more frequently, and when Coach Karam makes a mention of this, it is mostly in Baolan getting used a little bit more frequently and working alongside Ning. I think whenever he looks to collapse through mid lane, that's when the team looks at their strongest, because usually they get their early game leads, and you're like, okay, early game team getting solo lane leads, that's fair, that's fine. Let's try and get a play working through mid lane or top lane to upset that. But then every time in the LPL playoffs, whenever that becomes a strategy, suddenly Baolan starts coming up and the numbers game works towards Invictus Gaming. We haven't seen that so far yet, but I expect that to be the case early.
I really like that because that's one of the biggest strengths of G2 to me is that multiple members roaming around the map super early on and making those shifts very, very quickly.
There's actually a trick that when Baolan was known as Megan, he used to gank the top side of mid lane because it would never be warded, and he used to gank Faruqi very early on. So watch if it rears its head if he plays something like a Rakan.
All right, we're going hard on the third game of the day, G2 versus IG. We got 2 more before that. It's time to kick off day 4 of MSI Groups as we leave it to Quick Shot, Venius, and Spawn for G2 versus Flash Wolves.
Thank you very much, Dash. And hello, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined at the cast stage by Jake Spawn Tabiri and Andrew Vedieste. And as Dash just mentioned, G2 versus IG is the battle at the top of the table later today. Before we get to that, we're opening with G2 versus Flash Wolves. And for Flash Wolves, this is starting to get dire. A team that's 2 wins, 4 losses, and they need to start picking up wins if they want to safely make it to top 4.
But I think the Flash Wolves are one of the few teams at this tournament that seem to be finding the adaptation that it takes for them to be able to fit their current style into a tournament meta. You got to remember they started the first day 0-2 and have been able to pick up single victories in the subsequent 2 days. And I like how they've changed the draft to really suit what they were able to do domestically.
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Spawn. Something we talked a lot about coming into today was how Rather was playing a lot more control mages. We've been seeing the Orianna come out, which then suggests that maybe they'll be willing to leave the Rise open because they feel confident in their ability to pick into it. So I feel like that we've seen Hanabi stepping up, their mid laner is stepping up, and Betty has just been this consistent bot lane performer. I feel like that the Flash Wolves have progressively been getting better and better throughout the tournament, and picking up that win against Team Liquid yesterday was massive in order to still challenge for that 4th place spot.
And it's just such an easy way to judge a team, right? Because game 1 versus Liquid, they weren't able to utilize the Nocturne. The slow play was not working out. They were being controlled. In the second time those 2 teams played against each other, you saw the improvements that we're speaking about. Hope they can continue that today into G2.
And also remember, the last time Flash Wolves and G2 went head-to-head, for 20 to 25 minutes, it looked like Flash Wolves were going to win that game. It came down to a hero Baron 2v4 in which Wonder and Caps made it work. We're about to jump into draft, so Spawn, as we turn our attention to G2's blue side and Flash Wolves' red side, what are you anticipating as the priority pick?
Well, both these teams are actually becoming fairly telegraphed in drafts. So Vedius and I sat down. Galio was on the list. We're expecting right now Taric and Aurelia and Jace to potentially be what Flash Wolves are looking at.
Yeah, we kind of expected Taric to be something that they just kind of want to get off the board. You already mentioned the Jace spawn. So far, we're 2 for 2. It looks like both these teams kind of going in the direction that we expected from them. Now, if things go to plan, we wouldn't see a Tom Kent ban from the side of G2. Now, this is something that they really value on red side, and whenever they are on the red side, they always insta-pick it up. So they want to try and ban that one away to make sure they can get counter-pick on blue side.
They certainly do. However, one thing we did mention is Shalcy's global champion pool, the Kench as well as the Galio. If they take out the Kench, I expect a Galio ban to potentially follow up. It's not going to be the case. Little bit off kilter from what we've seen against the Flash Wolves so far. Could be a good read here by G2.
Yeah, now it looks like the Flash Wolves, they are looking to leave a number of flex picks open. Sylas, Irelia, Akali, and Rise are all up for grabs, and expectations are that the Irelia will be taken off the board, but they're actually going to pivot over to the Rakan. So we only got 2 out of the 6, but you know what? It looks like nice to see that both these teams kind of adapting as the tournament continues.
And I think the Rakan ban is in direct, counter to the fact that they took Kench off the board, maybe without, being a pocket brawl player for Shalcy, not really confident in the Xayah Rakan matchup, don't really play it themselves, so just wanted to remove it from volatility.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair ban. Meanwhile, the Akali being taken away from Hanabi's back pocket, it's something that Hanabi showed a lot of proficiency on, so G2 showing that respect, and of course, they can flex it between top and mid themselves, but no surprise that Flash Wolves would answer with the Sylas. Typically, a very strong matchup into the Akali. Now we're kind of expecting maybe the Rek'Sai or the Xin Zhao to come out from the side of Flash Wolves.
And just before Flash Wolves lock that in, interesting to note that this is the first time Akali has been locked in the MSI group stage for G2 Esports. We've seen the Sylas, we've seen the Irelia, and there is the Rek'Sai that you were anticipating. Now G2, where do they reveal their next pick?
So we're expecting some bottom lane priority for G2. We think that they like to be able to secure a strong matchup and leave the ambiguity of a flex pick open here. We know that they've got terrific Akali players, and whilst we haven't seen it prioritized yet this tournament, I have no doubt that both Wonder and Caps will play this champion to such a high degree.
Ooh, they're actually just going to leave the Rise up and go for the Aurelia. Now, Wonder was the main Aurelia player during the regular season of the LEC, but when we saw it played by Caps yesterday, he didn't have the best of games, but to be fair, against Fongfu Buffalo, no one on G2 really had a good game. So now they're heading towards that direction with their 2 solo laners picked up. I wonder if they're going to prioritize jungle or support right now.
Yeah, and jungle would make so much sense to me, just because taking a half of a bottom lane isn't really going to protect you any from the draft. You can still be attacked down there. However, if they take away the jungle champion pool, then you can make the solo laners a little bit more of a liability, especially given the fact that Flash Wolves already had theirs available. To match the picks would also make a lot of sense for me here, Vetti. It's not what we've seen from Rather, but it does make sense when you have a look at what G2 solo laners currently bring.
I would actually have loved to see the LeBlanc come out, because I feel like that it does fantastically into the Akali, and it kind of forces either the Aurelia to go into the mid lane, where you can then look to flex it around, or you can look to punish it with a Rek'Sai, but instead they're going to try and get Betty one of his big comfort picks. Kai'Sa was something that he played the most of during the regular season, and honestly something he's played a lot of in this tournament, and they're now kind of setting up for either a Kai'Sa Galio or a Kai'Sa Nautilus, both very potent bot lanes for Flash Wolves.
And the reason this is easier to do on red side is because they're going to be able to dictate the bans now. Then they will have first pick coming out of this stage of the draft as well. Ultimately means they can leave counter pick for Rather down to the very last pick if they wish to hide something as well. I like the adaptations in draft here from Flash Wolves.
All right, we're into phase 2. Braum is banned away. Galio was banned during the first phase. Gangplank is now added to the pool as well. Just an interesting tidbit that both Perkz and Wonder have run a unique champion every single game of the group stage thus far. If that Akali ends up in Wonder's hands and we see what Perkz wants to run in the bot lane, there'll be a little shenanigans afoot, and there's a Kalista ban in phase 2.
Wanted to tie into your point, Spawn, from earlier, where right now Flash Wolves are very clearly saying we're going for Nautilus. We're going to lock that one in. Your G2, we don't think you're going to have many answers to it, but right now I'm thinking of something like the Morgana. And the fact that G2 have chosen not to ban the Nautilus suggests to me that they must have something prepared, and they're more than fine giving that pick over to Schaus.
Especially when we've seen G2 run multiple different kinds of counters. The counter where we're going to try and run something to beat you in lane, or that we're willing to hold up 2v1 in this lane and potentially look to roam around the map. That's the thing that gets fans excited about G2. They don't play the League of Legends necessarily by the similar rules as other teams, and they are willing to flex that.
Ooh, we're actually seeing a pivot, so Flash Wolves taking it to the next level, and oh, hang on, immediate Draven lock-in. We'll get to that one in a second, but there's the Morgana that we were talking about, Spawn. The thing is from Flash Wolves is they wanted to have the choice to go for the counter pick. The problem by not locking in the Nautilus right now, well actually I say the problem, the advantage of not locking in the Nautilus now is they can pivot away from playing into the Morgana. I'd be very surprised if they voluntarily pick this matchup, because it gives a lot of bot lane priority over to the G2 duo.
And not only that, you'd have counter pick in both positions now. You know, Draven historically has been seen as that counter pick to the Kai'Sa, just out ranges, out damage early in the game. So Flash will say, you know what, we team fight, we pick for team fight a lot in the bottom lane. We're still going to stick to our guns. But you would have to say that the way this draft went is heavily G2 focused right now. The flexibility of the solo laners, the tie-in jungler for the top side of the map, and then counter pick bottom lane. Kind of every box we wanted G2 to hit coming into this game.
I feel like G2 can be very happy with their draft, and we didn't touch much on the Sejuani, but it does bring that extra engage for the team that has multiple split pushes. So even though Akali and Aurelia often work in this 1-3-1, Akali and Aurelia often one of the best split pushes at team fighting as well. So you combine that with a Draven with a Black Shield and the Sejuani ultimate, G2 have options to fight around these neutral objectives.
In saying that, Flash Wolves is all about the team fight, so I don't expect the collapse to come in. I expect the isolation, the separation, play the map, get the experience leads, because we saw against Flash Wolves yesterday, TL kept fighting and they just kept losing against this LMS squad.
Oh, it's going to be interesting to see what G2 can put on the board. Perkz is his third Draven game this year. He's won one and lost one back in the LEC, but the stakes are significantly higher. If G2 Esports take down Flash Wolves right now, they will guarantee themselves a spot in the best of fives, in the top 4 at MSI going into the semi-finals. G2 Esports, let's find out whether or not they can do it as they take on Flash Wolves here. And while G2 Esports can secure themselves a spot, Flash Wolves are still fighting for their right to survive. They are sitting at 2 wins and 4 losses, and they are tied with Team Liquid behind SK Telecom at 3-3. And if you look at the mini-map, As it stands, Flash Wolves have got themselves grouped up around that banana bush and pushing forward into G2 territory.
And you can see the immediately ward drop here from Perkz will spot out the invade. On the flip side of the map, Boogie also warded very earlier, then took up the mid lane position. Both teams obviously expecting some level 1 aggression.
I thought the Flash Wolves may look to consider trying to split the map, because one thing you've always got to be careful with the Draven Morgana lane is that they get that early gank assist and then suddenly that lane becomes out of control. So by forcing Jankos up towards the top side, yes, it runs the risk of having Radha and Hannah be put behind in the 1 versus 1, but the advantage is the Draven and Morgana are left isolated and they can't play as aggressively as they normally do.
And you can see right there that Betty shows himself trying to dissuade any of that aggression, and Caps had roamed down into the bottom lane. They obviously do want to protect Boogie's positioning on his first clear. Would not be surprised to see, you know, as you mentioned, the convergence of the jungler around that bottom lane Scuttle Crab and the fight for priority to be very hard.
We'll see whether or not any engages come from that Scuttle Crab spawn. I'm taking a look down. Summoner spells, a couple of teleports on both sides of the rift in the solo laners. Conqueror obviously sitting on both sides, solo laners for G2. And of course the Klepto Draven, something that we have seen a fair amount when Draven is played this year.
But also the Exhaust sitting on top of the Morgana as well. Typically, when you're drafting in a Draven lane, the Ignite adds that extra bit of kill pressure. So the Exhaust is saying, you know what, we want that extra bit of survivability, but it's so valuable against Kennen in these team fights. If he's diving onto multiple members, the amount of damage mitigated thanks to that Exhaust can shift a team fight into G2.
Especially given the fact that they want to play heavy lane. Bully Hook will go wide there from Xiaoxi. You don't have the luxury of running the spellbook right now for Mickey because you want to win the lane. The Guardian's going to be incredibly important, so I do like that he's just committed to that summoner spell for the late game team fight. And this is interesting to me from Flash Wolves because they're converging on the top side of the map as well. Could have been maybe a wave stacking into kind of be quicker than he would have liked, so therefore Jungler has to path towards it. But Boogie ending up on a side of the map where I would expect Hanabi in the early stages to try and play a little bit safer, given, you know, the synergy between something like a Sejuani Aurelia Gate.
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised because in terms of the pathing, Boogie started on his blue, he then went to red into top... Krugs, that's the Badger. And then, so he actually had no priority over either Scuttle Crab, meaning that he relied on his bot lane to secure it. And if Sejuani had taken that path, then she could have potentially secured bot Scuttle into top as well. So yeah, I feel like it was a bit of a dangerous path, but it does guarantee him level 3. And now he's going to convert it into the Raptors as well.
So my assumption here is, given the fact there's a Targons in the bottom lane and maybe a little bit more AoE coming out of something like a Kai'Sa, worried that with, you know, Silas, who we always talk about the push, bottom Crab was going to be off kind of the card. So Wonder fought for priority very nicely. Hanabi didn't want to give the gank over, and that's why, you know, potentially Jankos was looking at the top Crab, and Boogie just backed away completely.
And there we go. No shenanigans afoot as Wonder's able to farm up underneath the tower. And we'll see what sort of impact this has in the coming minutes, because Mickey and Perkz slowly pushing that wave back, but it does meet somewhat in the middle as Boogie has recalled, as has Jankos. They've both picked up those chilling smites and now starting to make their way down towards the relative lanes.
Now, I want to draw viewers' attentions to the rune choice coming out from Caps. We've seen a number of Akalis playing mid lane up against Silas, and one of the most common rune choices that you'll see is Fleet Footwork, because when playing up against the Silas, you often lose a lot of early game trades, which means that you want to go for a little bit more sustain, because whenever this happens, you want to be able to fight back, right? So you run the teleport, the Fleet Footwork, and you just try to get to laning. You're just trying to want to scale up, get that first item. But by going for the Conqueror, this suggests to me that he's looking for those more drawn-out fights and like constantly building up those stacks, hoping that he can out-trade the Silas later on.
I completely agree. I think that this is a side lane rune choice when we have a look at it. I think that if you're running something like the Fleet, it's because you're worried about getting through lane. Cap's obviously trusting in his individual skill to be able to do that. We see even further aggression down in this bottom lane.
We keep holding our breath every time it happens because there is so much kill threat really on both sides with a lot of burst damage and a lot of CC.
As well as junglers pathing bottom, so it looked like the heavy trades was a deliberate choice from Perkz and Mickey, and you were just waiting for them to pull the trigger on that engage. However, once again, you have to say that this is a good match out of Boogie to be down where his team needs it.
Look, neither team is falling behind yet. We're 5 minutes in of farming, and this is the first real gank that we've seen. Caps may need to blow the flash, holds on to it for now. Boogie's looking to chase further forward, and didn't manage to fire anything more than the Prey Seeker. So Caps escapes with his life. Now down the bottom lane, it's all in. Perks flashes to safety. Summoner heal's already used. Mickey continues to run. He's already used the exhaust. Now he flashes to safety. Dark Binding will buy some time, but one more auto is not in range. Nobody goes down, and listen to the crowd.
And you talk about volatility. 4 summoner spells burnt in that trade. Flash Wolves, however, will get the advantage. They force them out of lane. CS and experience going to be in their favor.
And we talked about it in the draft, the consistency that's been coming out from Betty this tournament. He demonstrates it once again here. Finding a successful 2v2 trade against the G2 duo will net them big advantages down towards the bot side.
While that was going on, Jankos finds Boogie up in the top quadrant of the map, pushes him a little bit away from his Krugs, and he just provides some additional cover for Wonder. Cap starts to go in and out, trading now with Rather. Rather has hijacked himself a perfect execution. We need to keep a close eye because either of these champions can just insta-burst down. Dark Binding finds a target. Mickey, only level 4, can't chase further. Rather decides to chase away. Caps has gone too deep, caught by a dredge line, and he bit off more than he could chew.
And once again, credit to the support staff of Flash Wolves because they are tracking the G2 members. Second to the gank, but it pays off.
And Flash Wolves, they didn't even have any vision on the minimap. It's just a tendency that we often see from Mickey, where after he does his first base at level 4, he looks for a roam, but Xiaoxi is there to match. Boogie, fortunately, is in a position where he can help with the counter gank, and the moment Caps tries to dower dive, he immediately gets punished. Beautiful stuff from the Flash Wolves. They get first blood.
Eyes on the dragon as well. You can see Perks dips his head into the river afterwards. And initially, this looks great from Mickey. It gets the ultimate out. You do have to question the over-aggression. Caps, even if he had have picked up the kill, certainly would have needed to burn a summoner spell at the minimum. Bit a little bit too far.
And great execution there from Rather as well, because the moment that Caps was underneath the tower, Rather hits him with the W, gets a huge burst of heal as well. So all that execution damage that's supposed to come out from Akali, it looked like he didn't even do any. So there was no situation where he could trade the 1-for-1, and Rather comes out on top.
I feel anxious as a European viewer now when I see Rather's competency on the Sylas. He has been going toe-to-toe with Caps and willing to pick those fights and trades. And, you know, he's got this advantage with the assist under his belt. And I need to see how this mid lane is going to continue to play out, and whether or not Caps can, you know, control himself a little more.
And honestly, this ties back in with a bit of a criticism that I've had for G2 over the last few days, which is that their early game seems to have gotten worse from what we saw in day 1 throughout the rest of the tournament. And like, you only have to look at their Fongfu Buffalo game yesterday to really iterate how poor some of their early game decision making has been. And whether it's due to confidence or whether it's down to poor execution, G2 have fumbled, and it is ways in which teams have found avenues to attack them.
But you do have to draw to the mental fortitude that they have, because it looks like in these games, it's not really getting on top of them. Sure, they've had some rough early games, but against SK Telecom, it was a similar story. They stuck to their plans. They're very coached, and they're just able to continue into what wins them games, even with deficits. So whilst they have made a fumble here, I have no qualm saying Caps will fight his way back into this game.
Absolutely the case. I mean, it's a 600 goal lead in favor of Flash Wolves. This is by no means game winning yet. Just as an update, the players on stage have requested the stage lighting be adjusted for their comfort. So while we tweak some of the lighting on stage over in Vietnam, we'll carry on chatting about this matchup. But I just want to allude to the G2 mentality. This is a squad of friends and jokers and jesters to a degree. And losing even in some of the manners they had, like to PvB yesterday, I don't believe it weighs on a team like this because of the way that they approach the game and how their team environment is built.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is a team that has like the great, you know, championship mindset coupled with some hungry players from teams that didn't necessarily have the success that they wanted on the international stage. Some veterans, some new blood in there as well. They seem to have got that perfect balance of what you need to bring together. And then they're also selfless when they play the game. That's the most impressive thing to me. We talk about these super teams. The fact that everyone can carry on this lineup and they let everyone carry is just so impressive.
And you know, there's a lot of similarities when you look over at the Flash Wolf roster, you know, that had to rebuild around Betty, who has been sort of the mainstay carry, but Rather, who I was not a huge fan of at the beginning of the group stage, he has won me over. His Orianna play was almost like an assassin in the ways that he was making those shockwaves work, especially against the likes of G2 and Perks. And as we can see, Betty and Xiaoxi, I thought there may have been some engages there from Jankos. It didn't work.
Yeah, it certainly didn't want to pull the trigger there. I think, once again, just trying to allow his team to push in a little bit more safely. One thing I will say about G2 is Flash Wolves, is this is a team that didn't have the best regular season. However, came into the best of fives very prepared, especially the Mad team best of five. And I think that even throughout, the play in BO5, they showed that they are very good at scouting out what a team wants to be able to do and then enacting the counterpoint for it.
And what's fascinating to me about this Flash Wolves and the old iteration of Flash Wolves is the old Flash Wolves always used to come into tournaments looking extremely strong. They actually upset a lot of teams, and then eventually they'd get figured out. Whereas this team seems to be the exact opposite as they slowly start to ramp up. As Jankos just gets eliminated.
Jankos was stood on top of a ward. He had his ultimate stolen away, and yet he still pathed down towards the bottom lane. Easy punish for Flash Wolves, and it's not a mistake you can afford to keep giving this team who is ramping up. Flash Wolves 2-0 up, and now 1,000 gold in the lead.
However, in this time, Caps has dug into Fog of War. Hanabi has a pushing wave. You can see how hesitant he is to go forward.
Oh, so close. I'm waiting to see whether or not Caps jumps out. The observers have toggled the G2 and Flash Wolves' respective visions, so obviously Hanabi wasn't aware. Caps decides not to waste more time. The minion wave is crashing into his tower, and he's gone back.
And you can see that potentially right now G2 want to play towards the top side of the map because they've got the 2 control wards in the bottom side river. This shows me as potentially a hook is on.
All right, Dredge Line will find its target. That's an easy stun onto Shoutzy, but Mickey's dropped so low. Whirling Death and one more spinning axe allows Perks to pick up the kill. I didn't see what the bonus gold was on the minimap. Rather had already left lane, and G2 are on the board.
Yeah, they certainly are. That's a great gank enacted after, this proper vision set up here for the G2 lineup.
All right, another engage in the middle lane as Rather and Caps are trading back and forth. Hijack is on cooldown, so Rather can't get the perfect execution. And G2 Esports, they claw back the gold deficit.
So even though we see Flash Wolves being the more proactive team in the early game, punishing the mistakes from G2, the goal is surprisingly even. A lot of it is coming down to the fact that Pokes just picked up this massive shutdown on the Draven, and he is now sitting at a healthy amount of gold. He's actually built up a 500 gold lead up against his lane counterpart. But it's fascinating how Rather actually has an XP advantage in the mid lane. Betty is a whole level up over Perks. So, this game is still hilariously close, even though Draven just picked up a massive shutdown goal.
And quite an early Ocean Drake picked up in what is becoming a volatile laning phase. Will swing this, I think, a little bit further into the Flash Wolves' favor. Shades of this Draven build reminds me a little bit of Bankflank. You got the Klepto to start taking up some gold. You got the fact that you only need to be able to CS well. One kill changes kind of the course of what the bottom lane of the map looked like it was taking.
I mean, it does. There's still a 10 CS advantage and a completed Storm Razor, but here's a replay of how Perks got the kill.
So here we see a pushing wave working its way towards G2's duo. So Flash Wolves feel confident to try and force this because it looks like G2's overextended. They don't expect Jankos to, after just dying, immediately walk in through the lane. So they end up getting punished for a slight overstep.
And let's talk about why they didn't expect Jankos there. He had cleared his bottom jungle and then had the full top jungle available, and Caps was rotating up there, so there was no vision top side. In any other case of a jungler, you would generally go up, clear your full topside jungle, look for a gank onto the Aurelia lane. That seems to be the area that G2 like to attack, but they bucked the trend once again and surprised the Flash.
And something that we've said many a times before about the Flash Wolf spawn is that they are a creature of habit. Even though they are a team that has shown growth, they still often rely on a lot of the old traits that they found so much success with over in the LMS, which is secure an early Drake. Once you've got it, rotate your bot up towards the top side and get yourself that Rift Herald. And once they have an early lead, I feel like they are a team that knows how to move around the map with it.
Well, 1, 2, and 3. Every tick point that we've seen from their local league has come true. First Drake picked up, first Herald picked up. The duo lane continues to siege and put pressure on the top lane, and Rather has already used that hijack. Jankos sitting with the ultimate available if he wants to jump in. Is not going to do so just yet. Instead, we take a look. Hanabi pushing the bot lane. The duos are now battling up top.
And you can see that this is... Oh, Fulk just spell shielded out there. This is the kind of game that Flash Wolves love to play because they're taking the first step and actually making what is normally a very proactive G2 team slightly reactive to the pace of the game in saying that still great scaling in this lineup, still a very good 1-3-1 comp. So I feel like Flash Wolves doing the right steps for now, but we'll see whether some of these mistakes that we've seen in their gameplay creep in.
Now, Flash Wolves are utilizing this Rift Herald to just invest more gold into Betty. They want to close the gold gap as much as they can between the Kai'Sa and the Draven, and you'll see 320 gold picked, effectively a kill, put into the back pockets of Betty. So that will definitely help him a lot, and while it won't secure a major objective, it just keeps the game relatively even, and now Flash Wolves have gained a slight gold advantage back in their favor.
I mean, the gold values are even between those bot laners. You can see Perks and Betty sitting just shy of 5,000 gold. First big items are coming in pretty much across the board. Wits in, sitting for Wonders Aurelia, Proto Belt for Hanabi's Cannon. And Boogie's now making his way into this top lane. No boots, but he's got the Warrior Enchant. I'm looking for the Black Shield if it's available. Gonna throw him down a little bit late. Exhaust is buying some time. Soul Shackles into stopwatch. Whirling Death comes out, and G2 obliterate the first kill. But it's ADC for ADC, as a dash and a pop and a dazzle means that Caps gets on the board. Now Rather's taken down, and Hanabi runs for his life.
Mickey with the beautiful Morgana play to set up the 3-man stun to allow the rest of Jankos to get that collapse. Teleports came in from all over the map, but it was G2 that ended up coming out on top.
And it was because they arose first, Betty. This is a team that is so quick on the trigger. Just impressive collapse. And that looked like a free gank because the Black Shield, I believe, started on cooldown there. You saw it used in the laning phase. You saw the aggressive posturing, but G2 read the player and able to collapse.
Zero hesitation. Everybody threw their champions into the top lane. And as you mentioned, that exhaust a few minutes ago, Vedius, coming in crucially to keep Perks alive as it started. Now, Hanabi did not use his flash, and Jankos stood on top of a ward, or he's clearing out the ward, rather. Means that Hanabi's not going to get dove, but I held my breath and we can finally see this replay.
So Boogie in a great position. He gets a good knockup. The Black Shield comes out late, knowing that, okay, the CC has already been applied, so get what we can, but look at that 3-man stun coming out from Mickey. Sets up for a perfect ultimate from Perks to then follow him from the chain CC from the rest of G2. We don't have time as another fight kicks off.
Yes, it does. Mickey finally uses his flash, continues to run for his life, dropped down to 150 HP. Betty's Icathian Rain was unable to pick up the kill, but a 3-man stack for the Flash Wolves should help them secure the first tower of the game. Looking at the minimap, Caps was making his way down, but there's no initiation opportunities yet.
I love that Flash Wolves are not slowing down. Throughout this game, Boogie has just been invested in getting this duo ahead. He's found multiple successful ganks, and just there they nearly got another kill onto Mickey. By forcing out his flash and knowing that there was no double teleport on the side of G2, they could secure the first tower of the game, and once again, reclaim that slight gold advantage.
And we'll see what they set up for now, because I would expect them to redeploy towards that bottom lane and go for the dragon. We keep talking about it, a predictable team in the Flash Wolves do like to fight around objectives. You know, the other play I would have liked to have seen is, you know, top turret is a hair's breadth away from being pushed over. It's only going to be an equalizing Ocean Drake, maybe seed, and look to trade for the gold objective.
I really want to draw viewers' attention to the minimap right now, because you'll notice how much vision is being invested from both teams. There are wards scattered everywhere, but it's G2 starts off the fight.
They are indeed. Caps may already have won the fight before it's even started. Xiaoxi and Betty are just obliterated. Wonder and Caps double team the bottom lane, but now all of a sudden Wonder's in trouble. He gets unburrowed and taken up. A beautiful 3-man stun. Gets Wonder to safety. He was looking for the dive onto Hanabi and was unable to find it. Now rather, he's chasing forward and the dragon's still available.
And G2 preying on the tendencies of the Flash Wolves. If we know where the Flash Wolves are going to return, G2 do as well. They set up fantastic vision and win the fight.
This is one of those situations where G2, they know what the textbook play is, and they look to ways to just rip those pages apart. Flash Wolves, there was no dance back and forth for the battle of vision. It was just G2 see an opportunity and go.
Vedius, you were trying to draw the pages of the textbook, not even anticipating G2's hyper aggro read on the situation. And literally as soon as you started highlighting the vision, G2 pounced on the opportunity. And it's that decision-making that is allowing G2 to sit in control of second place right now. Decisive, proactive play in the mid game.
And I want to draw attention to the solo laner items of G2 right now. We've got a Wit's End picked up for Wonder, as well as the making of what is going to be the Burning Face Liandry's Torment for Caps. Now, why is that important? Well, double AP solo lanes, so the Wit's End going to shut down both those sides, and then matched with the Conqueror, the ramped damage as Cap stays in combat for longer and longer in this side lane, makes his build less bursty and a lot more, you know, continue to skirmish 1v1.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is something that he's just specifically itemized for the Silas, but have a look at this. Cap's just sitting in the fog of war right now, immediately just dives onto Betty and obliterates him. There's no answer. The rest of Flash Wolves are just kind of spaciously moving in towards the Dragon Pit, even though they have no vision. Remember all that vision we were pointing out earlier? They felt like they had a pretty good read on what the situation of G2 was. They were like, oh, they started the Drake. We can start to make our way forward. We can start to set up for this play, but they don't have an opportunity. quickly, and G2 just pounce on top of them.
And in that replay, we saw the power of that Morgana Black Shield. It did not interrupt Caps despite him getting caught by Nautilus. And remember that Xiaoxi and Flashwheel still opted into this Nautilus pick even after seeing that Morgana. I want to see whether or not Mickey's Morgana continues to be pivotal. 0-0-5 right now. He is joining the rest of the squad in this upper quadrant as they steal the Bramble back.
Now, the gold is still very even. And we kind of got to remind people of what we talked about in terms of win conditions. Flash Wolves are looking for this big team fight, whereas G2 are going to be looking to play along the side lanes, look for these skirmishes, look to try and find these 2v2s and 3 versus 3s. Things will get a little bit harder for the Flash Wolves once Wonder completes his Trinity Force, and arguably when Caps completes that Leandries. So what they're looking for is ideally a setup around the Baron, because while it is not spawning yet, they just need to bide their time, wait for those second items to be completed. Looks like Morello is going to be coming out from Hanabi. It looks like the Rage Blade is going to be coming out from Betty. Once those are done, then they're in a much better situation to find a successful 5 versus 5.
Because we're looking at the earlier spiking, as you mentioned, Protobell's coming out from the solo laners, the ability to explode onto a backline if the correct flank is found. However, this is where the 1-3-1 becomes oppressive to play under, because there is no objective to force the G2 lineup to go to. At this stage of the game, they're playing with push in all 3 lanes. Boogie has to pick his poison. If you choose wrong, you will lose control of the rest of the map.
Let's keep eyes on the vision and whether or not Flash Wolves can actually, force G2's hands and try goad them or persuade them into that team fight spawn, because it is not an easy task. And you can see G2 1-3-1 enabled, Wonder in the top lane, Caps in the bot lane, Mickey, Perks, and Jankos, after pushing the wave in, have peeled away, and they're going to start looking at Rather in this top lane out of turret. You see Jankos just out of vision.
And Boogie just dodging out of a bind as well. You can see how cautious they are moving through the jungle. This is what G2 do. They suffocate your vision. You must take the long way, and then they just pick up the gold.
Beautiful execution of the 1-3-1 from G2. The important thing to note, once again, if I draw your attention to the minimap, see how the Akali pushed in the bot lane, walked up through river, and then again gained priority through mid, while the rest of G2 moved up towards the top side to then take down the tower. Excellently well done, and a great utilization of exactly what you were talking about, Spawn. Have priority in all 3 lanes, moving between them and slowly taking down these objectives.
What it is resulting in is a 1,000 gold lead for G2 Esports. 6 kills to 3, 1 tower to 1. Those big items have just been picked up, Spawn. Leandry's Torment for Caps, Trinity Force for Wonder, BT, as well as another BF sword sitting in Perks' back pocket. So everybody is continuing to scale up. It's 21 minutes. It is still even gold. So as long as G2 can keep Flash Wolves at arm's length and use this 1-3-1 to their intended purpose, that's fine. But they've got to be very, very careful if a team fight breaks out, because as a death ball, Flash Wolves comp is terrifying.
And that's why we're seeing sweepers with jungle and support off cooldown, because they have to get rid of the flanking wards. If they go for one of these plays, it's scouted out, there's a flanking ward, and Hanabi can get on the backline, it's a different tale. But as long as they play this controlled, measured style, there is no response right now for the Flash Wolves.
All right, Caps has jumped in. He's still got that perfect execution. So does Rather now. Gets stolen away, traded, and Caps doesn't even lose 10% of his HP. If Lolly Sports Instagram doesn't do a mechanics of that, then I'm going to be disappointed, because that was just flawless.
Let's not forget that it was Caps who was finding the solo kill on Jensen in the reverse matchup. The guy demonstrating that with just slight changes in the build path, going for the Conquer, going for the early Leandries, it gives you so much extra dueling power in this 1 versus 1. Beautiful development of the build from Caps.
Especially that when you think about it, the ability for Shroud to keep you in combat for longer period of times whilst not being under danger makes the Leandries quite easy to stack up in that regard. And with all of this map pressure, you can see that now it's Flash Wolves playing very much on the back foot. Just in the last few moments, all the outer turrets go down, the Cloud Drake goes over to G2. They have control.
Spawn, just like that, you blink and it's a 3,000 gold lead. As you mentioned, the towers have fallen, the kill is secured. All right, stun comes out here from Wonder. He's looking for the dash. Vanguard's Edge goes out, buying some time. Teleport's starting to be channeled. Flash has already been used. Wonder is shut down, taken down as Caps completes the teleport. Now he's going to make it in range for Mickey. Mickey's gonna throw down the Black Shield, but there was no other support. Perks and Jankos were not there, and it cost a teleport from G2.
Now, Flash Wolves finally find a good punish as Wonder overstays. There was nothing on the rest of the map for G2 to get, but now Xiaoxi might be caught out himself.
All right, Caps is looking to burst him down. He's got the Black Shield on. Flash is available if needed. Whirling Death comes out. Xiaoxi flashes to safety. There goes Caps. Picks it up with a 5-point strike. Now Rather's running for his life. He stole away an ulti, but I didn't quite see what it was. Now there comes the slicing maelstrom. Hanabi's stuck in the thick of it. Goes golden thanks to the use of the hourglass. The tower's falling in the back end as now Boogie is trying to zone away. Mickey gets jumped on by Betty. Betty gets one. Now all of a sudden G2 are running for their lives. Teleport being channeled. Can Wonder be the hero? All of a sudden Rather gets another in the back end. That's under Unburrow underneath. Betty chases, turns around, back on the Perks. They trade 1 for 1. This is a slaughterhouse with everybody taking one another down, and it's Wonder that closes it out.
Wow, what an insane fight between the two teams. Extremely close, but it is G2 that just barely come out on top. Remember, this all started off with Wonder getting picked off, but then G2, they actually tried to go for a 4 versus 5 by starting off by looking for a pick onto Xiaoxi.
And just the changes in the teleports, in times gone by, that would have been a cancel. There wouldn't have been this many people on the top side of the jungle, but there was, and the confidence of G2 comes out. As you mentioned, genuine 4v5 with the members of G2 trailing to the fight, but still looking for those kills.
I mean, initially it looks like a 2 versus 4, you know? Cap's just doing what he can to buy time for the rest of his team to show up, and Betty slowly making his way on the flank. So Hanabi does a great job of buying time, but when the map splits up, this is when the solo laners of G2 start to pop off.
And again, Betty, it's just Mickey's exhaust that makes sure that the health bars are a little bit more topped off than we would have expected from this proto belt cannon. And then Caps and Perks happy to play cleanup through. You can argue about, you know, the patience of Perks here waiting for the solo laners to come in, but this is how they play. They want to be fast, and they're catching the Flash Wolves off guard.
They didn't see it at the time, but Rather had stolen away the Soul Shackles. Nobody chased him long enough to get the stun. And as we come out of the replay, it's still a 4,000 gold lead in favor of G2 Esports. 2.5 big items across the board, but I see a terrifying Kai'Sa with the Rageblade Storm Racers as well as a Hextron.
Yeah, and G2 right now are starting up the Baron because they're the only team without teleport available. They need to force Hanabi to use it. They might just be able to take this one in fog.
Yeah, I don't really know how low it is. They've decided to peel away as the engage comes in. Caps is looking for Xiaoxi, goes immune thanks to the Shroud. That's unstoppable already. Continuing to chase a little further. Rather stole away the perfect execution, but look at the minimap. Hanabi, he's going to get out of range of the stun. One is looking to chase him down though, and Hanabi may be able to use this blast cone for some additional distance. Hops over the wall, but if you look at the minimap, he's starting to be challenged. A teleport just for this? That's fantastic, and he's going to escape, get the Vanguard's Edge as well.
And G2 get exactly what they want. They get the teleport, but they also pick up a kill. That is just such aggression out of Cap.
Can we also just appreciate how disgusting the Morgana-Akali duo is? The Black Shield onto an Akali that's just running in your face. What can you do about it? Like, there's absolutely no options other than to just sit there and die. When you have so much damage on Caps, level 15, 2 major items completed, even picking up the Oblivion Orb as well. Caps is so strong, and every time Flash Wolves try to walk into their own jungle, there's the risk of someone dying.
And it's so important to note that Flash Wolves want a team fight. They want a 5v5 sort of front-to-back, head-on style fight. Maybe they can flank with Hanabi, of course. They're not getting that. That previous big exchanges that we've seen spawn has been when G2 have teleported in and finished what Flash Wolves started.
Yeah, and that makes the game very difficult for Flash Wolves to play because if you're not winning the split push and you're not winning the team fight, well, G2 are kind of beating you at both areas of the game, not to mention that now Hanabi's teleport is very far behind both Caps and Wonders.
Well, Betty's gone. That was just, you know, Jankos hopping over the wall. A little bit of an Arctic assault, and this will open up the tower. G2 Esports, when they have found a kill, many times it has been flawless and clean. Tower number 4 falling in G2's favor. They're now setting their sights on the inhibitor turret. There's simply not enough power to defend. Wonder's going to look for the stun and not find it yet. Where's the rest of the minimap? Rather, defending the top lane with the help of Boogie, and Perks is now trying to push Hanabi away. Caps holds on to 2. The inhibitor falls. G2 are not done yet. Continue to step forward, literally just pushing Flash Wolves to the absolute brink.
And they go for the pick on top lane. They do try and go for the creative play. There is an Infernal Dragon as well as Baron available. But Caps, you know, plays a little bit safer this time around, able to back away. And G2, as they withdraw, just taking all the resources off the map, this has been such an impressive mid-game after what was a disappointing early game. And this is why, you know, analysts are so excited about the different areas that G2 can beat you. It's not just come out and blitz early game. They've shown in back-to-back games now that if things go all right, they stick to the plan and they're able to bring it back.
I mean, this is the thing, right? So Flash Rolls, the thing that makes me happy is that Flash Rolls are continuing to prove their early game.
Sure.
Right? Now, the question marks is how well they're transitioning that early into an effective mid-game. And unfortunately for them, one of G2's biggest strength is their 10 to 25-minute mark, when they complete their first items and they can start moving around the map. And unfortunately, Flash Rolls haven't really been able to set up for a situation where they could get the ideal fight, because again, G2 are just so good at finding those small windows to look for picks, go for skirmishes, and find those small fights.
And in so many of the plays so far, it's been that half a second, you know, very confident communication that it has allowed G2 to get the edge. They didn't play this game from an advantage. You know, they were taking 5v5 team fights, so not even necessarily with the better comp. But what they did have is the communication and the confidence to be able to go for their plays and secure it. And now continuing to bait around this Baron area.
So now Flash Rolls, their best bet is to try and steal away the Baron or get a good fight in the Baron. But unfortunately, they're slowly being starved out of vision. The entire top side of the map has gone completely dark. And the bright side for them is that G2 don't have necessarily the fastest Baron, but if you can't even approach the Baron, how exactly are you going to stop it?
And if you can't win a team fight, because Mickey still has exhaust every time Hanabi comes in, regardless of whether it's a level 16 cannon, he's just been shut out.
All right, Baron being dropped down, 50% HP. Boogie, Shalsi making their way up. Caps decides to engage. Remember that Black Shield does so much work. Baron's already picked up. Rather is now caught in and amidst the G2 members. He's trying to escape. He's got a stolen Morgana ultimate. Maybe that will become pivotal, but with Baron and 8,000 gold in the lead, there's a teleport going bot lane. G2 are just going to play the map to perfection.
And this is the part of the G2 game that I love to see. When they think that they are minutes away from winning, when they're willing to burn resources to set up the wave exactly how they want them and go for that death hunt.
It's a beautiful execution on how to push your advantage. They're not going too aggro, they're not taking these risks, and Flash Rolls, the number of options that they have are dwindling.
Just as a reminder, of course, G2 win this game, they guarantee themselves a top 4, but their sights are not set on top 4. They're looking for a minimum of top 2. They do not want to be in that 3rd or 4th spot, and if IG wins out, be one of the teams that could be picked. Let's see how this final siege plays out. Flash Wolves, on the other hand, they're still fighting. That's a gigantic spinning axe, but look at that. The Black Shield comes out. Perkz easily able to step away. Flashes to safety. The Whirling Death has already been thrown out. Vanguard's Edge comes down. Perkz takes out Rather. That's a stun onto Shalsi. He will be the next to fall. That's a double kill for Perkz, G2's captain. They turn their attention further. Hanabi, defensive slicing Maelstrom. He's running for his life. Perkz almost finds a triple kill. Not going to be lucky with a crit today. Stepping into the fountain. Not going to chase further than he needs to. The rest of G2 Esports are on the Nexus turrets. Perkz once more than the double, stepping forward, getting all the shields, getting all the heal. Nexus turret number 2 is the focus, and Perkz is keeping 3 members of the Flash Wolves inside their fountain. Caps dashes in and forces a flash out. The Nexus being ignored for now. The Winions are doing more damage. All of a sudden, Vetty takes a couple of axes to the face as the Nexus goes down. G2 guarantee themselves a shot at the playoffs.
And another decisive victory for G2 Esports. The early game, once again, they just allow it to come to them, explode through the mid game, one Baron into end. As soon as this team gets any advantage, they close.
Yeah, it certainly was, and the way in which they moved around the map was beautiful. I feel like that they got the kind of draft that they love to play. They had 2 exceptionally strong solo laners. They got themselves a strong 2v2 in the bot side of the map that, while it did struggle at times due to the pressure that Boogie was applying, it didn't slow them down at all, and they found a lot of successful plays in the mid game.
And this is why I say they're well coached, because I always have questions about what are they trying to achieve? When do they feel like they come online? They've changed the item builds. What does that mean for the game and how it is going to play out? But this team always knows what they're looking for. And when you allow them to set the pace of the game, it is so hard to wrest control of it back.
And if we kind of look at how the game played out, I don't think this didn't defy expectations, right? If we look at G2 at this tournament right now, they are a top 2 team. It was always going to be an uphill battle for Flash Wolves, but to me, I'm still looking at this as they're showing better and better early games every single time. They're slowly progressing. It's just about translating that early game a lead into a mid-game success.
I really agree with that, but I think that's been true for both Flash Wolves and G2. And for G2, they've cleaned up a lot of those mistakes you've seen from previous games in the tournament. For more on how exactly G2 locked in a spot in the knockouts, let's hear from the Safe Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much. Quick shot. Later on Shocks, we'll hear from Caps, but G2, our second team to lock in a knockout spot behind IG, and they do it with their second win over the Flash Wolves here. This one a bit more competitive than the first time around, but still a solid amount of control showcased by G2.
Yeah, more credit to Flash Wolves for keeping it close for me, because G2 showed me a lot more composure, but Flash Wolves were still in it.
Yeah, I mean, the early moves for Flash Wolves made a lot of sense, right? They were able to get the Dragon, then they actually lane swap up to top side to be able to get the Rift Herald in addition, get some turret plates for Betty, and, they're like, oh yeah, the steps and the plans are working until they run into Caps Akali with a black shield on him, and it just goes out the window, and Caps just destroys Betty, and then there's all your money that you were trying to funnel.
And I think it then starts in on the draft. Raz, you brought up a really good point that you have Aurelia, you have Akali. Kobe just said it. If you put a black shield on either one of those, there's nothing to stop them from getting into a backline.
Yeah, multifaceted, because in the laning phase, Draven and Morgana into this matchup, it makes it very difficult for Nautilus to ever look for a trade, ever look for an in until Rek'Sai starts to join in, and then you have Sejuani in it. So like that's just better for the G2 bottom side. And then once you start looking at the comp itself, you're like, all right, Morgana, Akali, we saw those few plays happen. Morgana and Aurelia, ultimately, you just have so much space because you have assassins just diving straight into you.
Is it not a little crazy that the blue side team got both Aurelia and Akali?
I mean, you're giving up some things, right? Silas, it was a big exchange, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, the Akali into Silas matchup, that's Silas' favorite now. Well, I guess it's just Cap's favorite as far as that matchup goes, because he makes these adjustments. He takes the Conqueror on the Akali as well, builds into the Leandries for the extra damage ramp, and then we see him solo killing rather multiple times. So, I mean, it's the fact that G2 have so many of these looks in Champion Select that allow them to come out with things like this. And then once you have those two pieces, Akali and Aurelia, not only the Black Shield, but also Sejuani passive stacks up with both these melee assassins. So you have CC, in addition to be able to deny the enemy CC, and the burst damage is the overwhelming factor.
And the small thing you want to add is really just in G2's composition, the Akali is really the only thing that is contested in first pick. The Aurelia you see going off a lot of times on both sides because contested laning phase when she got her W nerf, so a lot of AP mages could deal with her. Then the mid lane is not so much competitive. The top side of the map, same matchups that people are more willing to take.
Fair enough. But Kobe, you talked about the early moves that Flash Wolves made and how those were starting to generate something. But for G2, it was all about reacting to that, being in the right place, the right time. And we saw kind of the perfect example of that 13 minutes in, 3 for 1 in favor of G2 on the top side.
I think it was just the confidence also to know that Flash Wolves were going to fight you, and then the G2 immediately challenged them on that. They said, okay, let's double teleport in. We have no problem looking for these skirmishes and for these fights. And while Flash Wolves are a great 5v5 team, inside that 5v5, they are not as strong as G2 in the 1v1s, in the 2v2s, in these shorter skirmishes.
Yeah, who got the kills in those fights for G2? Wonder and Caps were...
All right, so then let's take a look. As you said, it was all about Caps from that point forward. Once they started rolling, he kept it going with his Akali play.
A primary reason why I have him in my top 5, because he finds himself straight in there. It's so tough for Betty to find any way in when G2 are already there, stacking on top of, the Morgana, Sejuani that's nearby. He's able to find himself in side lanes. I just feel bad for Rather.
I just feel like we've got to get to this point where we've got Faker, Rookie, Caps. I want to see them competing when they're not on Akali. Like, separate Akali from the equation.
Jensen's Akali.
This champion just does things that are disgusting. There is no correct positioning when there is a Fed Akali on the enemy team. You cannot do anything. She will find you.
Why you gotta bring that up?
It was a good Akali.
You're making me sad again, though. Because versus Caps, we had this exact example. And as I kind of was talking about earlier, this is the thing that was making me kind of sad, right? It doesn't feel like our team has the players that are looking for those game-winning plays, right? When people talk about, we can carry from any lane, it's looking for those types of plays where you set up the control where Caps is looking for the AD carry past the Nautilus, past the enemy mid laner to go get the game-winning play and pull that out, in these critical moments. It's more of like, all right, we'll group up as team fight, and then, we got to win the team fight.
It's X Factor. That's what it is. And the two teams that are leading the charge right now have multiple X Factor team play or players that will find like these miracles that will change the course of games just on their own play.
Need killer instinct.
I think a lot of it does have to come through the set plays in motion. This game for me was a lot of safety nets there. There was a whole bunch of safety net that if Akali's is jumping right in there, not only is your team setting up right behind you, but of course the Magic Shield. I think that this was incredibly well constructed. To be fair to your point as well, like, yeah, Caps is just that kind of a guy. And if you give him more of a safety net, man, he's jumping even farther.
Yeah, MasterCard player of the game this time around, but I think what we'll look for next is for Caps to have one of these kinds of performances against a team above him. I'm looking at that rookie matchup to see if he can maybe, shirk World Finals, shirk the first time around here in group stage. Let's put up some numbers.
That's one that has not gone so well for me.
Not so much. Let's hand it over to Shox, though, who has an interview with our MasterCard player of the game.
Thank you very much indeed here with Caps, who went off on Akali versus the Flash Wolves. Caps, just like in game 1 versus the Flash Wolves, a bit of a rough early game. Why do you think you match up against them maybe a bit worse in the early game?
I think we went for a draft that I didn't have the strongest early game. At least mid jungle was not the strongest, and I also kind of went really deep and died. So that kind of made us go, okay, we have to just play safe, and then once we get our items, then we can actually fight.
However, you still did fine further on in the game, the Akali versus Sylas matchup. You played both ends and you both won. What's harder and why?
So we're just trying out different things, right? I think the other game we tried first pick Sylas, now we're trying first pick Akali, just trying out matchups. Not really sure what's the best right now, but that's why we're trying it out. So we're ready for playoffs and know basically everything we need to.
But for you, you can win them all, or whatever side of the matchup.
I think every matchup has not every matchup, but most matchups have some way to win it, right? And then as long as you fight when you're strong and you don't fight when your enemy is strong, then you can win your matchups.
Yeah, that's pretty basically Legends, but that's the way it goes indeed. Now you guys are locked in the knockout stage of MSI, so congratulations for that. When you look at the teams that you are still playing, that you have seen played, how do you think everything's going to work out? Where are you going to end up, and who's going to join you, and who might you play in the semifinals? I know it's a lot.
As it looks right now, it looks like IG first, us second, and SKT third. Obviously, we still want to fight for the first seed, but I think IG have to lose to us and another team. So we're hoping for that. But as it looks, probably going to be IG picking whichever Flash Wolves or TL makes it, and then us against SKT in semis. I would assume it's going to end. But it's MSI, you never know what's going to happen. So I'm just going to try to win our games and stay focused on the goal.
Speaking about winning your games, IG rematch is up next. We talk about this matchup so often. It's sometimes gone your way, sometimes it hasn't. How's the mental feeling before that important game?
I think just LPL in general, honestly, I lost so many games to RNG before, and now I'm losing so many games to IG. I think at some point, I hope that we can find some way to beat them, and we're just going to try out different ways. Now we get one more game to play them. If we're lucky, we get another best of 5 in playoffs, and then maybe even at Worlds, right? And we're just going to keep fighting until we find a way to beat them.
Okay, fantastic. I hope it's today. Well, congratulations, Caps. And G2 locked in the next round. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Team Liquid is up on the docket versus Pengbu Buffalo. Don't go anywhere.
Rather decides to chase away. Caps has gone too deep. Caught by a dredge line. Mickey's dropped so low. Whirling Death and one more spinning axe allows Perks to pick up the kill. Soul Shackles into stopwatch. Whirling Death comes out and G2 obliterate the first kill.
But it's G2 starts off the fight.
They are indeed. Caps may already have won the fight before it's even started. Got the black shield on. Flash is available if needed. Whirling Death comes out. Chelsea flashes to safety. There goes Caps. Picks it up with a 5-point strike. Caps has jumped in. He's still got that perfect execution. So does Rather now. Gets stolen away, traded, and Caps doesn't even lose 10% of his HP. Being ignored for now. The Winions are doing more damage. All of a sudden, Vetty takes a couple of axes to the face as the Nexus goes down. G2 guarantee themselves a shot in the playoffs.